Mohamed Salah left in tears as Liverpool crashes out of the Champions League against PSG. In what can only be described as a heartbreaking moment for Liverpool Football Club, Mohamed Salah was left in tears as the Reds were knocked out of the UEFA Champions League by Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, following a dramatic penalty shootout. This defeat marked the end of Liverpool's hopes of progressing in Europe's most prestigious competition for the season, and Salah's emotional reaction underlined the significance of the loss, not only for him but for the entire team and the fans. The second leg of the tie, held at Anfield, was a tense affair that started with both teams knowing how high the stakes were. Liverpool had a slender 1-0 advantage from the first leg in Paris, courtesy of a late Harvey Elliott strike. But PSG was determined to come back, and they wasted no time in making their intentions clear. This article will cover the dramatic sequence of events in the match, the penalty shootout that followed, and the emotional aftermath of Liverpool's exit from the competition. We will also delve into the impact this defeat has on the future of key players like Mohamed Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and the club's ambitions under manager Arne Slot. The emotional toll of the loss at Anfield will be discussed in detail, with particular focus on the reactions of the players, the fans, and the club as a whole. Pre-match anticipation and the stakes coming into the second leg, Liverpool held a slender 1-0 advantage over PSG, thanks to Harvey Elliott's dramatic late goal in Paris. The Parisian side had dominated large periods of the first leg, but Liverpool's resilient defence and the brilliance of goalkeeper Alisson Becker had kept them at bay. Yet, despite their narrow lead, the tie was far from over. PSG, with their attacking brilliance led by the likes of Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi, were always going to be a dangerous threat. For Liverpool, this was an opportunity to continue their dominance in European football. Having already lifted the Champions League in 2019, and with a rich history in the competition, the Reds were determined to make another deep run. But the anxiety surrounding the tie was palpable, especially given the fierce competition they were facing in PSG. There was no margin for error, and Liverpool knew they had to perform at their very best to hold on to their lead. The crowd at Anfield was electric, as fans sang their hearts out, hoping to push their team to victory. But there was also an underlying sense of tension, the fear that a single mistake could undo everything Liverpool had worked for over the two legs. The early setback, PSG strike first. The game kicked off with both teams pressing hard, but it was PSG who would strike first. Just 12 minutes into the match, Ousmane Dembélé scored the all-important equalizer that would level the tie on aggregate. The goal came following a defensive lapse by Liverpool. Ibrahima Konate, who had been solid for much of the season, attempted a clearance under pressure. His clearance was misjudged, and the ball fell kindly to Dembélé, who was alert to the opportunity. With quick thinking, Dembélé capitalized on the error and calmly slotted the ball past Alisson Becker to give PSG the lead on the night and bring the aggregate score to 1-1. This early goal put Liverpool on the back foot, and Anfield fell into a nervous silence. The Reds were now in danger of losing their hard-earned advantage, and the game had suddenly turned into a tense battle of nerves. The battle for control. Following the early setback, Liverpool looked to respond. The Reds began to dictate possession, looking for openings in the PSG defence, which had been stretched in the first leg. Dominic Szoboszlai was pulling the strings in midfield, while Salah was working tirelessly to create chances for his teammates. Yet every time they threatened PSG's goal, they were met by an inspired Gianluigi Donnarumma, who was in fine form between the posts. Donnarumma made a number of crucial saves, including one from Mohamed Salah, whose shot from distance seemed destined for the top corner. But the Italian goalkeeper showed his world-class ability, diving to his left to deny the Egyptian star. As the match progressed, it was clear that Donnarumma's presence was going to be crucial in determining the outcome of the tie. Salah had another opportunity later in the half, but his shot was blocked by the PSG defence, and Liverpool's frustration continued to grow. The Reds were not without chances, but PSG's defence remained resolute, and their goalkeeper continued to frustrate them. As the match wore on, Liverpool became more desperate. Slot made some tactical changes, bringing on fresh legs to inject some energy into the attack, but the breakthrough never came. PSG, on the other hand, looked content to sit deep and absorb the pressure, relying on their counterattacks to threaten Liverpool's goal. But Alisson was up to the task, keeping his side in the game with some important saves of his own. The minutes ticked by, and with each passing second, Liverpool's hopes of progressing to the next round began to fade. The realization that the tie was now heading into a penalty shootout started to sink in. The penalty shootout, the final decider. After 90 minutes of tense and dramatic football, the match finished 1-0 to PSG, bringing the aggregate score to 1-1. The tie was now to be decided by a penalty shootout. The tension in Anfield was unbearable, as fans and players alike prepared for what would be a nerve-wracking finale. The shootout began, and both teams converted their first few penalties with calm and precision. Mohamed Salah, who had been Liverpool's talisman throughout the competition, stepped up to take his penalty. His shot was solid, but Donnarumma once again was the hero, diving to his right to deny the Egyptian. That save would prove to be crucial. The shootout continued, with PSG converting their penalties and Liverpool failing to keep up. When Curtis Jones's penalty was saved by Donnarumma, the tie was effectively decided. PSG emerged victorious, winning the shootout 4-2 and knocking Liverpool out of the competition. The final whistle blew, and the weight of the defeat hit the Liverpool players hard. Salah, who had been instrumental in Liverpool's Champions League campaigns in recent years, was visibly emotional. He collapsed to his knees on the pitch, tears streaming down his face. His reaction spoke volumes about how much this competition meant to him and to Liverpool as a whole. Mohamed Salah's emotional reaction. As the final whistle sounded, Mohamed Salah's tears were a symbol of the pain and disappointment that Liverpool and their fans were feeling. Salah had been one of the standout performers in the Champions League for Liverpool, and this defeat hit him particularly hard. The Egyptian king has been instrumental in Liverpool's success in Europe, and to see his dreams of another Champions League run dashed was a bitter pill to swallow. In the post-match interviews, Salah was visibly emotional but still gracious. He applauded the Anfield crowd for their support throughout the season, but his demeanor suggested that this might be the end of an era. With his contract set to expire at the end of the season and no new deal in place, speculation about his future has been swirling for months. Salah's tears and his body language suggested that his time at Liverpool could be coming to an end. Salah has continued to speak of his love for Liverpool and his desire to win more trophies with the club. But this defeat may have been the final straw in what has been a difficult season for the Reds. His reaction, after the final whistle, seemed to indicate that he had come to terms with the reality that his future might lie elsewhere. The aftermath. Virgil van Dijk and the team's response. While Salah's emotions were the most visible following the defeat, he was not the only player affected by the result. Captain Virgil van Dijk, who is also out of contract soon, was equally disappointed by the outcome. In an interview with Amazon Prime after the game, Van Dijk spoke candidly about the disappointment of being knocked out of the Champions League. He acknowledged that the team had given their all but conceded that PSG was simply the better team over the two legs. "We were good today, but PSG are a great side," said Van Dijk. "It was always going to be difficult, and we knew the stakes going into this game. But in the end, we have to accept it and move forward. The Carabao Cup final against Newcastle is next, and we need to stay focused." Van Dijk's words were a rallying cry to his teammates. Though the Champions League defeat stung, Liverpool's season is far from over. The team still has domestic honours to fight for, and with a Carabao Cup final against Newcastle on the horizon, they cannot afford to dwell on the defeat for too long. Conclusion: a heartbreaking exit and a new chapter for Liverpool. Liverpool's dramatic exit from the Champions League against PSG marked the end of another season of high hopes and bitter disappointment for the Reds. Mohamed Salah's emotional reaction to the defeat encapsulated the pain felt by every player and fan in the stadium. The loss was not just a defeat in a single match, but a potential turning point for the club. With Salah's contract situation unresolved, and key players like Van Dijk facing uncertain futures, this could be a moment of change for Liverpool. Manager Arne Slot will now face the challenge of rebuilding and moving forward from this painful exit, while ensuring that Liverpool remains competitive at the top level. For Salah, this defeat might mark the final chapter in his storied career at Anfield, but only time will tell if he will remain at the club or seek new challenges elsewhere.